Hello to all my peeps out there today in YouTube land on the 8th day of September 2016. I hope you're having a wonderful day today. The sky is overcast here in Indiana today, and it's going to rain. They're calling for rain for the next 3 days, so we'll have to see what's going to go on with this weather here, but it's not all that bad. Temperatures are probably in the upper 70s here this morning. I haven't actually looked at the thermometer, but it's pleasant. And the leaves are twitching on the trees. I've had some computer issues this morning. Gotta love technology, especially in a Mercury retrograde that we're going through. It's whatever can go wrong with anything mechanical will go wrong with it. Oh my, but we're back on track now. I hope everybody's enjoying their day. We got some news to report to you today. All kinds of things going on out here. So we'll get at that. And the first thing that we've got for you comes off of the Grid News. And it says here, house-to-house confiscation of guns will be on the California ballot. California is poised to vote in some of the most restrictive gun control laws in the nation when voters go to the polls in November. The ballot initiative Proposition 63 would ban magazines larger than 10 rounds, which critics say would lead to house-to-house confiscation by police statewide. It also would require ammunition sales to be made through licensed vendors, lost or stolen guns or ammo to be reported to police, require buyers pass a background check prior to purchasing ammunition. The magazine ban is drawing the most opposition. Millions of legal magazines will need to be sold out of state, taken out of state, or seized by law enforcement, according to the Coalition for Civil Liberties, which opposes Proposition 63. Many legal firearms will only operate with magazines that can hold more than 10 rounds, making them effectively illegal, the coalition noted. This backdoor gun ban is not just on future sales, but forces you to surrender your existing private property to law enforcement, it added. The coalition has asserted that Proposition 63, if passed, will lead to house-to-house confiscation of guns and magazines. According to the text of the proposed law, anyone who is caught possessing an illegal magazine can be jailed for up to 1 year. Current owners of such magazines have 3 choices, according to the text. Number 1, remove it from the state. Number 2, sell it to a licensed dealer. Or 3, surrender it to police for destruction. Sheriffs from Butte, Shasta, and Modoc counties told KHSL TV that the proposal would turn law-abiding citizens into criminals. Proposition 63 is bad for gun owners and bad for California, Shasta County Sheriff Tom Bosanko told the outlet. The California State Sheriff's Association opposes Proposal 63. This measure would do little to prevent the criminal element from acquiring guns and ammunition via the black market or through theft, a letter from the association reads. Instead, it would place additional restrictions on law-abiding citizens who wish to purchase ammunition for sporting or hunting use, retain guns and magazines that are currently legal for them to possess, and pass historical or family heirloom guns down to their next generation. The measure, the letter reads, will create a new class of criminals out of those that already comply with common sense practices that now exist. Personally, I don't see how that can stand up in court, even if it passed, because of the Second Amendment. I mean, the Second Amendment does not say you can only possess this or that. It says you have the right to bear arms. So it would be interesting to see what's going to come with that, but Lord have mercy. What do they think up next? The next one that we have here is off of the freebeacon.com. It says Clinton says she upped her antihistamines after her coughing fit. Hillary Clinton told her campaign press corps on Tuesday that she upped her antihistamines after her coughing fits from the Labor Day rally in Cleveland, Ohio. Yesterday, you weren't so bad, right? One of the reporters asked Clinton. It was great. I love having the plane. The planes make everything so much easier, and that's what we used to do in the State Department all the time. It was just so simple, and everybody in one place, Clinton said. Another reporter asked Clinton how her allergies were doing. Better, Clinton responded. The Democratic nominee then told the reporter the advice she received was to refrain from talking for a day or two. That's not going to happen. I'm just going to keep talking and hopefully power through, and tomorrow it will be fine, Clinton said. Clinton was then asked if she was taking any medications for her allergies. I just upped my antihistamines and tried to break through. As I said, it happens like twice a year. It happens in the spring when the pollen comes, and it happens in the fall when the pollen comes, Clinton said. Clinton then joked that someone has probably been creating a video recorded of her coughing going back decades. Another reporter asked Clinton about Trump's campaign, saying that she must have been allergic to the media. Yeah, I'm allergic to him. That's what I said, Clinton. Labor Day marked the first day of the presidential campaign in which Clinton allowed the press to fly on her campaign plane. So there's that one on her. The next one we have is off of Breitbart.com, and it says Clinton campaign dogpiles NBC reporter for covering Hillary's coughing attack. A member of the Clinton campaign joined in the shaming of an NBC reporter after he wrote about Hillary Clinton's embarrassing coughing attack in Cleveland Monday, with left-wing bloggers and former White House speechwriter also mocking his write-up of a public event. Dear Andrew, get a life. Thanks, Nick, wrote Nick Morrell, the traveling press secretary for Hillary Clinton, linking to a comment from the journalist Jonathan Alter, insisting that the story ain't news. Merrill's tweet was directed at NBC News reporter Andrew Rafferty, who wrote that Clinton struggled to fight back a coughing fit. In response, Merrill's followers taunted the NBC reporter, saying that he should be embarrassed to call himself a journalist, suggesting he was paid by Donald Trump, and urged him to delete your network. And we got some silly thing trying to play here, and we'll get that stopped. These websites with their ads and their silly things going on. Okay, I think I got that stopped. All right. Let's see. In response, Merrill's followers taunted the NBC reporter, saying that he should be embarrassed to call himself a journalist, suggesting he was paid by Donald Trump, and urged him to delete your network. And I'll be dogged if that thing ain't trying to run again. How in the world we get that silly stuff stopped here? There we go. I found a button. Button. Who's got the button? All right. Says the article was linked on Drudge Report's banner, sending a flood of readers to the NBC News website. Obama's former speechwriter, John Favreau, was also outraged at NBC News. Is there anyone at NBC or anywhere else who's willing to defend this story? Favreau asked on Twitter, sending more online hate towards Rafferty. Vox, B-O-X, apostrophe S, Matthew Gilius, I guess is how that's pronounced, joined the attack. They seriously ran this story, he asked, linking to the headline, prompting his followers to tell Rafferty to delete his career. During the speech, Clinton repeated that the cough was sparked by allergies, a claim that her campaign repeated after the rally. So there you have that story about her coughing fit. The next story we have here is off of BizPac Review, and it says, Chavez demands independent review of Clinton's obstruction evidence, highlights the real C words. House Committee on Oversight and Government Reform Chairman Representative Jason Chavez asked the U.S. Attorney for the District of Columbia's for the District of Columbia Tuesday to review evidence from the FBI's recent interviews to decide whether former Secretary of State Hillary Clinton on her confidants broke the law. The Utah Republican wrote to U.S. Attorney Channing Phillips, saying his committee discovered a sequence of events that may amount to obstruction of justice and destruction of evidence by Secretary Clinton and her employees and contractors, including her attorneys, employees of Platte River Networks, and employees of Clinton Executive Services Corporation. The FBI made public late Friday before the Labor Day weekend a summary of its investigation into Clinton's use of private email accounts and servers. The committee had received a limited selection of files from the investigation 2 weeks earlier. In the light of this information, the Department of USADC should investigate and determine whether the Secretary Clinton or her employees and contractors violated statutes that prohibit destruction of records, obstruction of congressional inquiries, and concealment or cover-up of evidence material to a congressional investigation, Chavez wrote. Chavez said an engineer at Platte River Networks, PRN, the Denver-based IT company Clinton used to host one of her private email servers, deleted Clinton's email archives in March 2015, despite knowing those records were under preservation orders and a congressional subpoena. The FBI's discovery of a conference call with Clinton's lawyers days before the deletion work ticket, created possibly the same day as that deletion, used a software program designed to prevent evidence recovery, and the manual deletion of backups raised questions about Secretary Clinton's involvement, Chavez said. Chavez also sent a letter Tuesday to Platte River Networks demanding information about destruction of evidence. The IT company has until September the 13th to hand over names, emails, work tickets, and non-disclosure agreements related to Clinton's server. In brief, the summaries of the FBI's interviews with PRN engineers show that within days of a conference call with Secretary Clinton's lawyers, the engineer deleted archives of Secretary Clinton's emails despite knowing those records were covered by preservation orders and a subpoena from Congress. Chavez wrote to PRN Chief Executive Officer Treve Suavo. PRN did not have a proper security clearance to handle classified information, as the Daily Caller News Foundation first reported. The FBI summary released Friday revealed the FBI could not recover Clinton's 13 mobile devices from her lawyers, and that a Department of State staffer sometimes destroyed her old BlackBerry phones with a hammer. So there you have that information. She's Teflon, I'm telling you. The next one we have is off of SputnikNews.com. And this one says, after missile tests in North Korea, South Korea considers new anti-sub aircraft. Following Pyongyang's successful test firing of a submarine-launched ballistic missile, or they call it an SLBM, last week, the South Korea military is considering purchasing 4 anti-submarine patrol aircraft. A Boeing P-8 Poseidon, which carries a price tag of between $223 and $268 million, is being considered, according to a senior government official speaking with South Korean newspaper June Ang Abo on Tuesday. The official believes the new crafts are necessary as North Korea is preparing a number of strategic ways to attack the South using its submarine fleet on top of the SLBM development. We are discussing whether to purchase the latest maritime patrol aircraft to detect North Korean submarines to prevent surprise attacks from underwater. The Republic of Korea Navy, ROKN, felt the need to beef up its surveillance capabilities after the DPRK's SLBM test launch landed in Japanese waters last week after flying some 500 kilometers. Although we need to expand the reach of our surveillance in the aftermath of the SLBM success by the North, there are limits with the outdated anti-submarine patrol aircraft currently operated by the Navy, the official said. The 16 P-3Cs patrol jet currently in use were introduced in the 1960s and used propeller engines. The ROKN has been looking to acquire new anti-submarine patrol jets since March of 2010, when 46 sailors died after the Cheonan warship sank in the Yellow Sea. Navy officials concluded that North Korea torpedo was to blame. A month after Cheonan sank, an unnamed military source told South Korean news agency Yonhap North Korean submarines are all armed with heavy torpedoes with 200 kg warheads. It is the military intelligence assessment that the North attacked with heavy torpedo. They added the military intelligence has made the report to the Blue House, where the president lives, and to the Defense Ministry immediately after the sinking of the Cheonan that it is clearly the work of North Korea's military. In the aftermath of the sinking, the Ministry of Defense saw the need for more maritime surveillance aircraft and encouraged the purchase of 12 Lockheed S-3 Viking jets. And ROKN official stated, we need to detect an enemy submarine when it surfaces in our waters. Doing so requires anti-submarine aircraft with wide surveillance coverage and high speeds. The P-8 Poseidon, equipped with the latest detection technology, can enhance our operational capability. The P-8 Poseidon jet can reach speeds of up to 490 knots, altitudes of 41,000 feet, and can fly 4,500 miles without refueling. The aircraft can be fitted with weapons, including airdrop torpedoes, to strike enemy submarines upon detection. According to the manufacturer, the jets have twice the sonobuoy processing capability and can carry 30% more sonobuoys than any maritime patrol and reconnaissance aircraft currently flying. So there you have some information on what's going on with Korea. The next one that we have here is off of the All News Pipeline, and it says, this is proof the UN is preparing to crack down upon the American, or I'm sorry, let me try that again. Is this proof the UN is preparing to crack down upon the American people? Sahara supporter within the UN blames Trump for colossal violence in the future. According to the recent story from Adam Credo at the Washington Free Beacon and shared in the first video from Gary Franchi of the Next News Network, bigots, anti-Semites, and terrorist advocates are spreading hate within the halls of the United Nations with the full backing of the international organization. Just the latest signs that the U.S. needs to get out of the UN and fast. While the United Nations and their pursuit of globalism over the last several decades has led to the murders and deaths of countless number of innocent people around the world, we learn in this story from Bridget Johnson over at PJ Media that the hypocrite UN High Commander of Human Rights is now blaming Donald Trump and the rise of weaponized populism for what he warns will turn into colossal violence in the future, even comparing Donald Trump and Nigel Farage of the UK to ISIS. Interestingly enough, according to the story from Foreign Policy, there is a great deal of evidence that the same UN Commissioner for Human Rights, Zeid Ra'ad al-Hussein, is strongly against the rights and free expression as evidenced by his nation, Jordan's attempt to get the U.S. to criminalize the defamation of religion. According to his recent story from Susan Duclos at ANP, al-Hussein is also demanding robust gun regulations in America. Is al-Hussein's warning that Trump will be responsible for colossal violence in the future proof that the UN is preparing to attempt to crack down upon the American people? If not, what colossal violence is al-Hussein referring to? The main political violence we're now witnessing here in America is being perpetuated by those who hate Trump and are attacking his supporters and their rights to speak freely, and by those who hate America. Does al-Hussein know something we don't? Is his warning of future violence in America another sign that the UN is preparing to attempt to disarm peaceful, law-abiding American citizens, many possibly Trump supporters, which would undoubtedly lead those same Americans protecting themselves and their families at the acts of terror being committed upon them by the UN, thus resulting in violence in America? The huge majority of Donald Trump supporters who we have communicated with are very peaceful people and want a peaceful world for their children and grandchildren to grow up in, and want nothing at all to do with the colossal violence. In fact, most are abhorred by it. What is this globalist really referring to when he warns of colossal violence? You can hear al-Hussein in the video in this article. All these URLs are included in the description of the video, so you can check them out for yourself and watch the videos if you want. We also have to ask, is this man who is now arguing against Donald Trump and nationalism simply another terrorist in sheep's clothing working diligently to disarm peaceful, law-abiding American people and silence our rights to criticism and reject the totalitarian political system of Islam, which has long been masquerading as peaceful religion while being used as a Trojan horse to infiltrate and overthrow America and the West? Hugely anti-human rights country, Saudi Arabia, is now at the head of a key United Nations Human Rights Panel, should tell us a lot about how serious the UN is about human rights. They're not. Human rights to the UN is nothing but a cruel joke. While taking over this key human rights panel, Saudi Arabia was also planning on crucifying a teenage human rights activist. As of November of 2015, story from Front Page Magazine asked, what's the difference between the UN and international terrorist organization? Is the UN simply a lobby for terrorist rights in their attempt to take over America and the West? As we have reported time and time again on AMP, the United Nations clearly doesn't have the best interest of peaceful, law-abiding American citizens in mind. Why would the UN allow a country that executes children for activism to take over a key human rights panel if they really cared about human rights? The mere fact that terror supporter al-Hussein, who once praised ISIS for their ethnic diversity, is taking it upon himself to attempt to influence the U.S. presidential election, speaks volumes, proving once again that the globalist terrorists who have been working to destroy America will stop at nothing until their goal is accomplished. We find it not the least bit surprising that Donald Trump is absolutely pulverizing Hillary Clinton in the recent poll taken of active duty and former U.S. military members, crushing her by 19 percentage points. It's clear that U.S. military members have awoken. According to this news story from Joseph A. Klein over at Canada Free Press, U.S. President Barack Obama is now using the UN to bypass the U.S. Senate treaty consent authority. Just the latest move by the increasingly out of control Obama administration to sign away sovereignty of America to what many warn is a very real international terrorist organization. We feel the U.S. giving away control of the internet at the end of September is another very dire sign of the direction this is all headed. According to this Wall Street Journal story, when the U.S. abdicates control of the internet on September the 30th at midnight, there is very real chance that the anti-free speech Shahara supporting UN may take control over it. Having 100% proof now that our own president is actively working to destroy America while setting us up for a globalist takeover. Will Obama and the globalists even allow America to have an election, as it's becoming increasingly clear that Hillary doesn't stand a chance, even if her rapidly crumbling health allows her to make it to November? While the DHS and Jay Johnson warns of a Russian plot to influence the U.S. election, it's quite clear to us that any plot to steal U.S. election will be coming to us straight from the terror-supporting globalists and the UN in their drive to get a war criminal Hillary voted into office so they can continue their pillaging of America and the world. However, as Americans rapidly awaken to the scourge of globalism upon America, just as the British did in their Brexit, the globalists are becoming more and more desperate to put the final stake in America's heart before we can get a pro-America president into office. Only an alert, knowledgeable, and fully prepared American people can stop them. And there's some videos and stuff with this, so you can pull up that URL and take a look at those if you feel so inclined. The next one we have is off of barenakedislam.com. And this says, this is from yesterday, September 7th. It says, new Muslim mayor of London creates thought police, which means British citizens could get 6 months in jail for reading or commenting on bare naked Islam. The office of the mayor of London, Sadiq Khan, has issued a grant for new thought police, an online hub designed to identify so-called hate speakers for police. What's more, he is spending millions of pounds of British taxpayer money to essentially eliminate the concept of free speech. It says the grant promises to improve the police response as well as develop the intelligence to facilitate countermeasures that can reduce and prevent further criminal activity. British and European law do not contain the robust protections for freedom of speech that America's First Amendment provides. Saying anything that falls under the poorly defined rubric of hate speech is already criminal in London. They just want to improve their capacity to send the police to your house. The penalty can be 6 months in prison per offense. Well, actually, they want to do a little more than that. The grant also promises to build community capacity to respond collectively to online hate. So it isn't just a rule of law response that they're looking for here. They just want to organize online mobs to go after you for expressing disapproving thoughts. Breitbart News points out that this is the brainchild of London's first Muslim mayor. The Office of London's first Muslim mayor has secured millions of pounds to fund a police online hate crime hub to work in partnership with social media providers to criminalize trolls who target individuals and communities. In May this year, the EU announced that Facebook, Twitter, YouTube, and Microsoft had committed to working more closely with them and national governments and their law enforcement agencies to help criminalize perceived illegal hate speech online. Naturally, the law will also be used to criminalize political opposition and the establishment. One of the first uses was to target what the UK standard refers to as Brexit hate crime. But it seems from grant application that speech critical of Islam is the real target. The announcement of the grant states that recent reports identified 45% of anti-Muslim hate crime took place online, and the organization is seeing up to 80% of its resources used in monitoring online hate and supporting the victims. The claim is that seeing online hate crime results in higher levels of depression, stress, and anger, and can cause changes in which streets they walk down, how they answer the phone, reactions to strangers, and suspicion of coworkers. That last element sounds particularly ominous given Islamist workplace attacks such as the San Bernardino shooting. The London police appear to be suggesting that seeing criticism of Islam online leads to murders of this sort. Indeed, the criminalization of critical speech even seems to suggest that these psychological effects to some degree justify Islamic violence against society. Breitbart points out that convictions under the law banning speech of this kind have increased tenfold in the last decade. They quote Frank Furedi, emeritus professor of sociology at the University of Kent. The police are becoming more and more involved in controlling our morality, he told the BBC. They are almost playing the role of moral police, and instead of dealing with real crime in the office world or offline world, the police find it's very convenient to send the message in the online world because it's a relatively easy thing to do. Doubtless it is a lot safer than targeting Islamist militants. The only cost is a little liberty. Well, maybe a little more than a little. So there you have that. That's why it is so important for us to keep the First Amendment intact, so we don't have stuff like that going on over here. The next one we have here is off of scmp.com, People's Liberation Army, and it says China's top military body orders officials to pull out all stops to resettle 58,000 redundant troops. Central Military Commission tells provinces and local governments not to hinder the first wave of 300,000 PLA layoffs scheduled by the end of 2017. Leaders of 10 provinces and municipalities have pledged to find jobs for redundant 58,000 military officers. The first batch affected by President Xi Jinping's plan announced last year reduced the People's Liberation Army by 300,000 troops. We absolutely support the decision. China's military units back Xi Jinping's plan to cut 300,000 troops. In a rare move, the People's Liberation Army Daily on Thursday published a full-page special report made up of promises from party chiefs, deputy governors, and mayors, as well as officials in charge of personal affairs in the municipalities of Beijing and Shanghai, and provinces of Hebei, Liaoning, Shandong, Shenzhai, Shandong, Jiangdong, and Fujian, and I'm hoping I pronounced them somewhere close to right. It says their promises came after Central Military Commission, the party-appointed body chaired by President Xi Jinping, that exercises control over China's armed forces, decreed that local governments should not consider veterans' ages or rank, especially those who served in hardship post or special assignment when they resettled in prefectural level cities, which have the best services and amenities, the Daily reported. Local governments cannot place additional conditions or set obstacles when handling their resettlement, the report said. It said that Zhao Qizhai, party chief of Hebei province, which practically encircles Beijing and hosts the largest garrisons to protest the capital, or to protect the capital, promises to make sure the resettlement proceeded smoothly. Other provinces also vow to cooperate with the CMC. The radical plan to turn China's People's Liberation Army into a modern fighting force. It says Xi announced that PLA would be cut by 300,000 troops shortly before presiding over last September's Grand Military Parade in Beijing to mark the 70th anniversary of the end of the Second World War. The cuts, twice the size of the British armed forces, are scheduled to complete by the end of next year, or by the end of next year, meaning the remaining 242,000 redundancies will take place over the next 16 months. But a retired senior colonel in Beijing told the South China Morning Post that resettlement timetable was extremely ambitious and was likely to be postponed due to the difficulties. Although the CMC's order for local governments to cooperate are legally binding, China lacks the extensive veteran rights of other countries and the veteran who did not want to be named. The PLA officers make rare public show of disappointment at military budget increase. Many of laid off officers are middle-aged and older, and some have no special skills. They cannot compete for jobs with millions of new university graduates. The retired veteran said the CMC was aware of the problem and that some military specialists were studying proposals on how to overcome them. And I found this very interesting because all the war talk of China and Russia, going to cause all kinds of disturbances over with Libya and all these other countries, and China's going to lay off 300,000 of their military. Interesting. The next one is off abcnews.go.com. It says, river in Russia mysteriously turns blood red. And I'm thinking maybe it's not really quite so mysterious. And it's got something trying to play here, and so we got to get that shut off as soon as it decides that it's going to, as soon as I start reading is when it's going to start to play. That's how this works. Yeah, here we go. Okay, we get that shut off. There we go. It says, startled residents of a Russian city inside the Arctic Circle have been posting photos of a local river that has mysteriously turned blood red. Photos published on Russian social media appeared to show the Daldikan River near the city of Norilsk flowing vivid burgundy. Russian authorities have yet to establish a reason for the river's unusual appearance, but the local people quickly linked it to a giant metals plant upstream. Russia's Environment Ministry said that it was investigating a plant leak as the likely cause. Norilsk is known as one of the most populated cities on Earth, built around factories mostly belonging to the vast metals company, Norilsk Nickel. Some Norilsk residents wrote in a local social media group that they believe the river's biblical shade is linked to runoff from nearby smelting plant. Some suggested the color was being produced by wastewater mixed with mineral ore leaking into the river from the Hope Metals plant. The post prompted Russia's Environment Ministry to respond, issuing a statement announcing that it is investigating and that preliminary information suggests the cause was a leak from waste pipes belonging to Norslick Nickel. A company's subsidiary denied the pollution was caused by an accident involving Hope Factory, according to the statement. The ministry said it's still working to locate the pollution source. Reached by ABC News, the factory declined to comment. Area residents on local media and local indigenous groups said they were sure the color was coming from the area's metals plants, noting that it was not the first time they contaminated the region's water. A user named Evenji Belkov, who claimed to have worked at the Hope plant, said that workers referred to a reservoir connected to it as the Red Sea on account of its color produced by one runoff. Other users posted older photos seeming to show the reservoir a similar color in an area that has large pipes running into it. In winter, the snow is also red, Belkov wrote on the social media group. On one hand, it's beautiful. On the other hand, it's chemical. Grigory Dukarev of the Association of Indigenous Peoples of the Taimyr Peninsula, which represents Native communities in the area, told ABC News that he was preparing to submit formal complaint to regional authorities asking them to investigate and was traveling to the river to record the pollution. He said he was previously told that the runoff from the factories was not harmful and would cause minimal ecological damage, but he said he was skeptical. I'm going to ask the representative from the company to drink the water, Durkarev said. Will they drink the water? I doubt that. So there you have that information. Wow. And that would be shocking. And if you pull the picture up and take a look at it, I mean, this is blood red water. This isn't just, some tint thing. The water is red. Holy smoke. Have here is off of MSN.com. It says, has DNA met its match as a forensic tool? U.S. Department scientists say a new method of analyzing genetic mutations in proteins in human hair could lead to the first forensic technique other than DNA profiling that could reliably match biological evidence to a single person with scientific precision. In results published Wednesday, researchers at Lawrence Livermore National Laboratory in California said their early study using hairs recovered from 76 living people and 6 sets of skeletal remains from London dating to the 1750s shows the promise of hair proteomics, I guess that's pronounced, or the study of proteins that genes produce. We are in very similar places with protein-based identification to where DNA profiling was during the early days of its development, said Brad Hart, director of the National Laboratory's Forensic Science Center and co-author of the study with lead research, Glendon Parker. This method will be a game changer for forensics, Hart said, while cautioning that many steps remain before it's validated. If borne out, independent experts said hair protein analysis could address concerns about the reliability of visual comparisons of hair strands, a technique whose subjectivity has opened it to criticism that experts claim were frequently being overstated. Protein analysis could produce a valuable way to corroborate existing cutting-edge DNA testing that draws on tiny traces or mixture of genetic material from different people. DNA mixture can be found in samples as small as a handful of skin cells invisible to the eye, but the interpretation of results has become more complex and controversial, even as trace or low-copy DNA testing becomes one of the fastest-growing areas of crime lab work. With protein analysis, the best-case scenario is you will eventually have, in 5 to 10 years, a complementary but separate method that we currently have to correctly identify or to exclude the right person involved in a crime, said Glenda S. Cooper, Director of Science and Research at the Innocence Project, which advocates for prisoners seeking exoneration through DNA testing. The caveat with Livermore studies, she said, is its small sample size. We need to know much more about the variability in populations of what they're measuring, and we need to know it, and we need to know it for subgroups ranging from whole racial groups and groups of people from different regions of the world, for example, down to immediate and extended families. In the study published in the Public Library of Sciences journal, PLOS 1, Hart's team piggybacked on human genetic research that has revolutionized criminal investigation since the DNA conviction in 1988. Unlike visual comparisons of features such as human fingerprints or hairs that rely on expert opinion about a match, DNA profiling calculates the precise odds a piece of evidence came from an individual by searching for short, repeating sequences of genetic material at different points in a person's genetic blueprint. Proteins are long chains of molecules assembled using recipes in each person's DNA, which parents pass to their children, Hart said. Hart's team established that DNA mutations in a person also carry tiny changes in amino acids, which are the building blocks of proteins. The frequency of changes can be measured, and once it's known how often the protein mutations occur among a given population, the protein analysis could be used the same way as DNA to identify a person, researchers said. The Livermore study was conducted with protein-based identification technologies of Utah, founded by Parker, and in collaboration with researchers at 7 universities in the United States and Britain. The study found 185 protein markers in an examination of male and female hair samples from 66 European Americans, 5 African Americans, 5 Kenyans, and 6 remains taken from cemeteries in the Greater London area dating from 1750s to 1850s. The number and pattern of each person's protein markers in combination were unique, Hart said. Participating and independent scientists caution any initial research must be viewed skeptically, subject to confirmation by others. Christopher J. Hopkins, director of the Forensic Science Graduate Program at the University of California at Davis, where colleagues collaborated in the Livermore study, said researchers still face questions, including why hair protein markers vary between identical twins with matching DNA profiles, and whether diet or environment can change protein markers over time. 25-year FBI agent who spent 6 years as an FBI laboratory hair comparison expert said, I don't think it's an overstatement to say it could be a game changer because of the frequency in which hair is found at violent crime scenes. DNA can be recovered from hair roots, but not often. Less precise DNA testing can be performed on hair shafts, but can only be traced to people who share a heritage on their mother's side. Both types of DNA can degrade over decades compared with hair proteins that remain intact for centuries. An FBI spokesman said the Bureau is aware of and following the research. Hart said the lab has spent about $3 million on work so far, with support from the U.S. Defense Department and in conjunction with Justice Department research grants. So there you have that information. I thought that was fascinating. The next one we have here, well, let's see. Get rid of that. Here, it's the politicalinsider.com. This is your inspiration for the day. Maybe you'll learn something from this. She locked herself in a freezer at work. Then this happened. She got accidentally locked inside a freezer at work, but what happened next is priceless. A lady worked at a meat distribution factory. One day when she finished with her work schedule, she went into the meat room freezer to inspect something, but in a moment of misfortune, the door closed and she was locked inside with no help in sight. Although she screamed and knocked with all her might, her cries went unheard as no one could hear her. Most of the workers had already gone, and outside the cold room, it's impossible to hear what's going on inside. 5 hours later, while she was at the verge of death, the security guard of the factory eventually opened the door. She was miraculously saved from dying that day. When she later asked the security guard how he had come to open the door, which wasn't his usual work routine, his explanation was this: I've been working in this factory for 35 years. Hundreds of workers come in and out every day, but you're one of the few who greet me in the morning and say goodbye to me that night when leaving after work. Many treat me as if I'm invisible. Today, as you reported for work like any other day, you greeted me with your simple manner, hello. But this evening, after working hours, I curiously observed that I had not heard your bye. See you tomorrow. Hence, I decided to check around the factory. I look forward to your hi and bye every day because they remind me that I am someone. But not hearing your farewell today, I knew something had happened. That's why I was searching everywhere for you. Be humble. Love and respect those around you. Try to have an impact on people who cross your path every day. You never know what tomorrow will bring. So there's a little lesson to you. You know, we tend to be self-centered, thinking about our own selves and what we've got going on in our own lives, and be so consumed with our own personal little world that we ignore people around us or snub them, or maybe not even necessarily on purpose, but we don't give the time of day to other people. And in this case, it saved this lady's life. So you might think about that the next time you're out. Just greet people, even if you don't do nothing but just give them a smile. Even if they don't smile back. Even if they thumb their nose at you. They might moon you. Who knows what they're liable to do. But be nice to people. It don't hurt you to be nice. So there you have your little inspiration for the day. And with that, we're going to shut her down for today. Hopefully we don't have the technical difficulties tomorrow that we had today, and we can move through it a little bit smoother. Oh, I hope y'all have a wonderful afternoon. Go outside. I don't care if it's raining. Go out in the rain. You know, that'll wash you clean. And kick off your shoes, stick your feet down in the grass, take a breath of fresh air. Don't look up if it's raining, though. You might drown. And and ground yourself and get you a little balance in your life. We'll see you back here tomorrow. Thanks for watching.